310s here again to talk about something that's been bothering me. I rarely do much preparation for most of my videos. I kind of just, scripted isn't my thing. Because if I'm scripted, I'm very rigid about following the points that I laid out. And if I forget something and I go on way too long, I just like letting it all out there. That best suits me. It doesn't best suit everyone, it best suits me. But for this video, I didn't go scripted, but I've been thinking about it a lot. I was going for a jog earlier today, and on the way back from the jog, I jogged a certain distance, and then I had to come back. And I thought I had to come back like in 20 minutes, but in reality, I had to come back like in an hour. So, I had to do some stuff on my phone, so I was just walking the whole way back, and it took a really long time. And I was walking, and as I finished the stuff on my phone, I just started thinking about the WWE and the World Heavyweight titles. I don't know why, but I just was. And I started thinking about everything, and then I realized I have to make a video today. I just do. I know I have that mindset of I need to wait a few days after I make a video before I upload another one. But now that I have revenue sharing on all my videos, people are going to see it whether they want to or not. So really, there's nothing I can do about it. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I think people are having a misconception about what's wrong with the title, because it's not the world title itself. And I'll say it now. All right. The world title, the actual world heavyweight title, is not the thing that's lost credibility. Because if it was actually the title, then if you switch the titles, it would mean something. Because earlier this year, WWE was going to have Del Rio come to Raw with the world title, and Miz go to SmackDown with the WWE title. They were going to switch the titles again. But because Edge got injured, the draft got moved up, and then they said, we're not going to switch the titles. So, plus Edge was the champion. So the World Heavyweight title was going to be moved to Raw, and the WWE title was going to move to SmackDown. And I guarantee you, people would still have the same problem with the SmackDown title. They would not have the same problem with the Raw World title. So to me, I don't think it's the fact that I know some people said, oh, it's because the world title isn't their world title. It's the WCW title, and they bury it more than the WWE title. I don't agree with that. I think if you switch the titles, you'd still have the same problem. Put the WWE title on SmackDown, the world title on Raw, same problem. Because that's not what the problem is. The problem is not the actual name of the belt. It's something far worse. All right. So I was thinking about this, and then it just really started to bother me of why the world titles are the way they are. There's several reasons why the SmackDown World title, a lot of people are considering somewhat of a mid-card title. I still wouldn't go that far. I still wouldn't say it's at the level of the Intercontinental title right now, because no. I still say it's a world championship, but I still say it is definitely a notch below the WWE championship. A lot of people are saying this because of the Christian stuff, but let me tell you right now, the way you book someone to win the title doesn't mean shit. It's how you follow it up. And let me give you a great example. The Great American Bash 2004. I saw this pay-per-view live. I know many of you haven't, so I'll recap what happened. Eddie Guerrero was the champion, and he had been feuding with JBL for a few months. And so it was a Texas Bull Rope match. So what happened was Eddie had JBL tied by the neck, and JBL was hanging from Eddie's back. So they were back-to-back like this, with JBL tied around the neck. So Eddie would walk around, and he would tap a turnbuckle. And when he would tap one, as he was leaving, JBL would tap it. Then he would go to another turnbuckle, tap it. As he was leaving, JBL would tap it. He would go to a third turnbuckle, taps that. As he was leaving, JBL taps it. Then he gets to the fourth turnbuckle. And JBL kind of turns around, and JBL's about to tap the turnbuckle. And Eddie turns around JBL, and Eddie runs towards JBL, runs over JBL, and taps the last turnbuckle. So we all thought Eddie won, and Eddie was celebrating in the ring like he won. I was happy. I was jumping up, my little 10-year-old self. Yay, Eddie! And then Kurt Angle comes out, who's the general manager, and he showed on the video that when Eddie tried to jump over JBL to tap the turnbuckle, he actually pushed JBL into the turnbuckle, and JBL's back hit the turnbuckle before Eddie hit the turnbuckle. So JBL was declared the winner, and he won the title. I was 10 years old when I saw this. When I saw this, I even looked at my TV and I said, what a horrible finish. This guy's a fluke. He doesn't deserve that title. Well, what a terrible finish. And it was. And back in this day, I still think about it, that was a horrendous finish. It made JBL look like a total bitch. Because at least Christian, there was some sort of as poorly as he won the title, there was at least some sort of intelligence to know, hey, Randy's got a bad temper. Maybe if I piss him off, he'll get disqualified and I'll win. With JBL, it was just like he literally backed up into the title. Eddie Guerrero pushed him, and JBL won the title. It was so horrible how JBL won that title. So freaking horrible. I still hate it to this day. Because literally, he didn't do anything. Not only did he, at least Christian had the intelligence. JBL, he was the bitch that got lucky. So I really hated that finish. And I always thought JBL was a fluke champion. But then in the coming months, he feuded with Undertaker, Booker T, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle, The Big Show. Because he feuded with main eventers, you know, he ended up, I mean, a lot of people hated him, but more because they hated the JBL character. But if you look at his title reign, maybe his matches weren't that good, but you never doubted his credibility. You never doubted that, you know what, this guy's a main eventer because of who he was feuding with. And that's the main problem with the world title, in my opinion. It's not the title. It's not even the wrestler that holds the title. It's the surroundings. Because Christian is in a sea of half measures. I'll tell you what I mean by half measures. Orton obviously is Orton. He's always been a full main eventer. For those who follow me on Twitter, I've been watching Breaking Bad the past few weeks. I've been watching the entire series. Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul on the AMC channel. It's a tremendous show. And in the second to last episode of season 3, Bryan Cranston was sitting down and he wanted to get his friend, who was a former junkie, he wanted to get his friend arrested because if he didn't get his friend arrested, his friend was gonna wind up killing someone. So he wanted to put him in jail to prevent him from causing havoc upon society. And then this other guy, Mike, a private investigator, told him, that's a half measure. That's not taking care of the problem. That's just a now solution. You need a full measure. You need to take care of the problem. And I think for WWE, a lot of those guys on SmackDown are half measures right now. Sheamus, Wade Barrett, I'll say Mark Henry right now because we don't know where it's going, and Christian. They are all mid-carders. Not lower mid-carders, not even mid-carders. They're upper mid-carders, but they're still flat-out mid-carders. They are guys who the WWE pushed for a while, stopped, pushed someone else for a while, stopped. They all have different paths. For some people, they got to the top of the mountain, and then WWE just kicked them off, and they flew a few steps down. There was others, like Christian, in my opinion, where he was on top of the mountain, WWE grabbed him and threw him to the bottom, and then he's climbing back up, but as he's climbing up, they're throwing rocks down at him to prevent him from getting back up to the mountain. And then there's guys like Wade Barrett, who WWE thinks got to the top of the mountain, but in reality, he's only halfway there. So these are all guys who are not full main eventers, and because Christian is not defending the title, because his competition right now is with other mid-carders, it doesn't make the title look prestigious. It looks like a bunch of mid-carders are fighting for the title, and that's why people view it as a mid-card title. It has nothing to do with the way Christian won the title. That's bad, don't get me wrong. That's very bad, but you can work around that. If Christian were to have, let's say, I'll go to the WWE roster of 2008 on Raw. If Christian, next month, defended the title against Batista, and won. And then he fought Jericho and won. Then he fought Cena and won. Then he fought Shawn Michaels and won. Then he fought Triple H and won. Obviously, this will never happen. But, you know, it makes Christian look prestigious because his title reign, he beat the main eventers. He went through the main eventers. Right now, you know, there aren't main eventers. There is Orton, but even he's deflated a little bit. And one of the reasons why I wanted John Cena to go to SmackDown so badly was because my main problem with the WWE right now, it's not that John Cena is their number one guy, but he's so fucking far ahead of everybody. And by sending Orton to SmackDown, you make the problem even worse. Because at least Orton and Cena were neck and neck. By putting Orton on SmackDown, and because it's the SmackDown show, Orton went down a few notches. Whereas if Cena went to SmackDown, he would have been de-elevated, which right now is good. Yes, the solution for Cena's over-pushing is to push everyone else, all the other main eventers on the roster, at the same level as Cena. But that takes time. You can't just push someone for 3 months and then push someone else for 3 months, and then push someone else for 3 months, which is what they've been doing. They tried it with R-Truth. They tried it with The Miz, another half measure, another half measure. Alberto Del Rio, another half measure. They never go all the way. They're so desperate to get over their whole roster of main eventers that they only give someone a partial time, when in reality you should give someone full-fledged 6 months, then do it to someone else, then do it to someone else. That takes time. which is why I thought, for the time being, put Cena on SmackDown, de-elevate him a little. He'll still be the top star, but he won't be so ridiculously over the rest of the roster. Yes, I get it. Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin, they were both the top guys. But Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, at least they were close to him. They weren't at his level, but they were right there. Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Undertaker, as far as credibility goes, they were at his level. And most times, there was a time where The Rock was probably above Austin. In 2000, when Austin was hurt and The Rock was the #1 guy in the company, I mean, he was a big star. So I'm saying, like, John Cena, like, right now, who's the #2 face on Raw? Rey Mysterio? I love Rey Mysterio, but Rey Mysterio isn't a pay-per-view main eventer. I'm not saying he's a half measure like Sheamus and Wade Barrett and Christian, but, aside from The Undertaker, rarely has ever, in the past 5 years that Rey Mysterio has supposedly been in the main event, has a guy won the title, and in their title reign, they have to fight Rey Mysterio at the pay-per-view. Very rare. Very rare. Rare. I mean, Swagger did it, but it was in a 4-way. I don't think that really counts. 4-ways, triple threats. Almost never has a guy had to fight Rey Mysterio one-on-one, except, I believe, The Undertaker from Royal Rumble. So I love Rey Mysterio. He probably is somewhat of a main eventer, but I wouldn't say that he's, one of those guys in a title reign that helps put the title over. I mean, yeah, Raw, you have the same problem. Don't get me wrong. Del Rio, R-Truth, Miz, these guys will get pushed, but they're not full-fledged main eventers. Alex Riley, it's the same problem, but at least it's the flagship show. It's Raw. Believe me, if you switch the rosters from Raw and SmackDown, the SmackDown title wouldn't look bad because you're on Raw and you have John Cena. And I guess they're doing something to CM Punk, but he's not in the company right now. Well, he might be signed to a contract, but he's not in the company. But, however, that's why I think, since the SmackDown, that was another point I was going to make. Another reason why the title hurts is because, for the simple fact it's on SmackDown. WWE has made every deliberate fucking effort to make SmackDown the B show. But even then, in 2008, SmackDown was still the B show, but Triple H was the #1 guy there. I mean, you could still do it. I think that if they had a set roster around the title of main eventers, then, the title would look a hell of a lot better and people won't view it as a mid-card title. But because they don't, because they have no other set guys there, I mean, at least Raw, you can make the argument, besides Cena, I guess now they have Punk, they have Rey, they have Big Show. Yeah, the guys that are actually fighting for the title, like R-Truth and Del Rio and Miz and Kingston, yeah, I guess you could say that's a problem. It was very evident on the WWE title tournament, how little depth that Raw roster has, more than people realize. I was looking at that tournament, and I'm like, there's not one guy in here, not one, who would consistently main event a pay-per-view. So, I do think that's a problem with the SmackDown title. That is the problem with SmackDown title, the roster. Yeah, it is on SmackDown, but you can work around that, all right? If you had over enough guys that can surround the world title and make it prestigious, that's great. That's why I've seen a lot of people make the argument, maybe WWE will give Danielson the world title because it's the mid-card title. And yeah, it is, and it's a shame because they have not successfully pushed everybody, and their title is suffering because of that. So I do not think the problem is the booking of how Christian won the title. Like I said, they've done it in the past. There's ways to get around it as long as you make the title look prestigious. Hell, isn't any Money in the Bank cash-in a cheap champion? They made Edge look good. They made RVD look, well, he didn't do a cheap cash-in. They didn't make CM Punk look good, but that's because, they wouldn't let him go over anybody besides JBL. And JBL by that point was a little more upper mid-carter-ish. But like when he fought Batista, they had a DQ finish. And then he fought JBL and he won. And then he didn't even get to defend his title the next pay-per-view. He was the Raw champion, folks. So, yeah, I think it really does depend on how they treat their champion. Not as much as, the actual champion itself. And like I said, because of the lack of roster depth, that's what really hurts the title. So I do not think it's the actual title. I do not think it's the way the guy won the title. I do not think it's because of SmackDown, because there's ways to get around that. It is part of a problem, but you can get around that if your guys were over. No one in the WWE is over, ladies and gentlemen. Aside from John Cena and CM Punk and maybe Randy Orton, no one in that company is over to the level of credibility. It sucks. Hopefully they do something about it, but hey, it's what it is. All right, that's all I want to say. I believe I'm going to go over. Make sure I got all my points in. I'm Big Red 10. I'm out, guys. See you.